So is rental yield important? Okay, look, when we're investing, I always say to people, we always want to be looking at a rental yield and we want to be looking at growth. I like to say we're catching both. We're not just doing one or the other. People think you can only have good rental return, but you're not going to have capital growth, and people think you can only have capital growth without the good rental yield. It's a misconception and it's a lie. So when I'm out there, we're looking for properties that are yielding quite high compared to your Melbourne, Sydney properties. We're looking anywhere from 5.5% yields above, okay? And even if you get a 5% yield property, sometimes we have found a 5% yield property for a client, and then we settle on the property, and then once the lease agreement expires, then we can increase the rent up an extra $50 or $80 a week, whatever it may be, and the rent return will increase. But I don't get too fixated on the rental yield depending on certain people and their situation. And why I say that, it comes down to your goal and what you're trying to do. If you're someone that's a very high income earner and you're probably doing it with a spouse as well, and you don't have a problem with your borrowing capacity, and you can sacrifice a 0.5% yield or a 1% yield off the current market, then and the property makes sense financially, it's going to grow in value, it's going to give you the extra income and the extra equity for the future to use to get into other properties, then I look at it as like, okay, well, let's not focus on the yield, okay? But if you've got a client and they need a cash flow asset to help with their serviceability, maybe potentially they got a low income, okay? Maybe they got a low income, maybe they're investing in a trust or a company which needs to show a profit so they can get more extra borrowing capacity for the future purchases. Or they just need an extra. The cash flow is going to help them. The yield is going to help them with serviceability as well from when they get when they purchase the property. So that can make a big difference, because a 1% difference in the yield can change the borrowing capacity dramatically. And not just that, let's say when you're refinancing to go again to get another property, or you're going for another pre-approval, if you already got an existing property, let's say your current property is yielding 5%. Okay, and let's say there's another scenario, he's got a property, or they have a property, that's yielding, say, 6%. The person that has the property that's yielding 6% is going to get a better borrowing capacity because that property is more, it's got a stronger return or stronger yield. So it's depending on the individual, their circumstances, and what they're looking for as well. Okay, we do purchase. Sometimes we might find a great property stacks up, purchasing around the 500k mark. But the property might be yielding, say, a 5%, but the property is still going to produce some really strong growth. It's going to, get them faster to their goals, because they're looking for more of a different type of asset compared to something that's probably a little bit at the lower end and that has a better yield, but maybe it doesn't have the strong attributes compared to the 500k property, because the 500k might have an extra bathroom, might have an extra bedroom, might have a patio, or whatever it may be. So those sort of properties will have a bit more stronger equity, or more of a growth asset compared to the other properties. So it's depending on the circumstances. And so I say to people, and so when I'm looking at people's situation, we look at it together and we go, okay, well, what's the best case scenario for these guys? And sometimes we will sacrifice on the yield. We're going to sacrifice because we're like, what? It's not important. It's not important at this point in time. We know the rental income will increase over time. Not just that, it's probably under market rent at this point in time, and they've got a tenant in there, and we can't change the rent or increase the rent, so we have to wait. So I don't get too fixated on that, because the goal of investing is equity. Equity is how you make your wealth through property. People forget that they want these great rental returns. They want these, the 7%, the 8%, the 9% yields, which is fantastic. And that's what that's what you need, some properties that have a good return. But how you make your wealth is through growth. Just remember this: if you have a property portfolio that is returning you $200,000 positive cash flow a year in your pocket, you've got to pay tax on that. Now, if it's in a company, or if it's in the individual name, all the properties, doesn't matter. Okay, you're going to have to pay tax on that, regardless of what the percentage is. But let's say you got a property and you've purchased a home, you've had it for 30 years and it's grown tremendously well, okay? And guess what? You go, you know what? I'm going to release about 100 grand or 200 grand of equity from this property. You've worked out, or you can release a certain amount of equity from all the other properties. And what you do is you make sure that the repayments are going to pay for itself by the rental income. Okay, guess what? That 100 grand or 50 grand that you release from your property, it's tax free. You don't have to pay any tax on it. So you can do whatever you like with that money when you refinance it. You can go buy a car, go pay for a holiday, and you can do whatever you like. Go buy another house. Okay, and that is something to keep in mind, because the cash flow, of course, we want the cash flow as well. We need cash flow in the portfolio. If we just have one or the other, we're going to get stuck. But look long term, don't look short term. Okay, people look short term here and now and they're like, oh my god, it doesn't have a 6% yield. That's fine. That's going to be fine. If you've done your numbers and it's actually not going to affect your lifestyle, that's okay. Let's go for the property if it makes sense financially, and you've done the research, you've done the DD, you know where it is, you know it's going to grow. Okay, the yield, it's not irrelevant depending on your circumstances as well. Okay, so everyone's situation is different, and I can't speak for everyone. I'm just trying to give you guys as much value as possible to have a look at things from a different angle, different side, and just have a look at it from the big picture. Okay, this is where your broker comes in play. This is where your accountant comes in play. Okay, this is where your buyer's agent comes in play as well. So don't just listen to me and say, okay, I'm listening to Frank. I need to speak to all my professionals and see what they're saying and what they're recommending. Okay, and that's going to help you get to your goals faster as well. If you've got a savvy broker, savvy accountant that can help you as well when it comes to your tax and your wealth creation, that's going to help and impact as well the strategy. So hopefully you got a lot of value. Hopefully gives you a bit of clarity about what you're looking out for when it comes to property. Don't get too fixated on the yields as well at times. Depending on your circumstances, I look at it as, if the property making sense, okay, it's irrelevant, because in 6 months or 12 months time, the rents are going to go up again if you invest correctly, and they may go up $40 to $50 or maybe more. Okay, and so you're not going to complain about what it's yielding then to when it yields in the future, and as it keeps going, because it's always going to, if you buy correctly, your rents will increase every single year. That's why I say look long term. Okay, so thank you. Hopefully you liked this video. Please give us a like. That's all I'm asking for you, a like. I'm not asking you to share. I'm not asking you to do anything else, just a like. So then, we can see who we're reaching out to, and seeing that you're watching this video to the very end, okay? And if there's anything else that you'd like us to talk about, just write in the comments. Talk about something, whatever it may be, and we'll create more content around that. So thank you again, guys, and we'll see you for next week's poll.